Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today we are going to give an update to my Mandalorian Stamina Nightblade build. This is a two-hander and bow, and the reason we're going to be updating this, so this is going to be Mandalorian 3.0, is one of the armor sets had changed on my Mandalorian build. And so for the time being we're going to keep it and roll with it, and let me show you what that looks like. This build features, with continuous, you'll hit 9k weapon damage, and the tooltips are really scary, but anyways, let's jump in and look at it. First things first, this is a front bar back bar setup, or we are at least running the master's bow on the back bar. I would prefer that this was infused, so that way we got extra weapon damage when we hit people with our lethal injection. But we still, I mean, you can't really argue with 8100 weapon damage. So I'll do a screenshot here so you can see when it's fully buffed up, but it's 8117, and then when you get continuous it takes you to 9k. So but anyways, down at the bottom, 2-piece, increase your weapon damage by 330 against targets affected with your poison arrow, which includes your poison injection. So there that is. We are running Ring of the Wild Hunt, and it is infused, and we're running with the weapon damage enchant on there. Increase your movement speed by 15% while in combat. Increase your movement speed by 45% out of combat. This helps us get to and from targets very quickly. And so the first set that we are running, both sets are the same if you've seen Mandalorian 2.0, but they're the same armor sets, but because the second armor set has changed. But the first armor set is just New Moon Acolyte. And some people I know run a front bar setup and back bar setup with New Moon, so that way when they're on their back bar they don't get that increase the cost of your active abilities by 5%. Hasn't really been a problem on this build, even for the extremely low max stats that we have, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But New Moon Acolyte, and you can see I do have one heavy piece. The rest of our armor pieces are medium for the most amount of weapon damage through the agility passive, and we do have the prismatic enchant on this. Okay, so just a lot of weapon damage and some pen. The next set that we have is the Crusader set. Now if you had seen Mandalorian 2.0, this armor set actually functioned completely different. It was when you dodge roll, it doubled your dodge roll window. So I would be finished with my dodge roll, but abilities would still be missing me. And it would give off like a light hue effect to let people know that something's going on. You know, why am I still missing this guy even after his dodge roll? Anyways, they changed that. Very few people were using it. Here's the new set. 2-piece weapon damage or spell, 3-piece weapon damage, 4-piece weapon damage, 5-piece when you deal direct damage with a blink, charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability. You consecrate the ground beneath you for 10 seconds and gain a damage shield that absorbs 9,500 damage for 6 seconds. Every 2 seconds, you and up to 11 group members in the area gain minor courage for 12 seconds. These effects can occur once every 20 seconds, and the damage shield scales off your weapon damage. So when we are fully buffed up and we jump in on a target, this damage shield will be 12k outside of PvP. Okay, so inside PvP it'll be 6k. Not a huge shield, but it's enough to take a hit before you need to dip out of fights. Anyways, the 2, 3, and 4 pieces changed drastically on Crusader. They were not weapon damage before, and they were not overflowing with max stam, however, and our stamina recovery has gone down. So I've taken the build out. It feels fine to me, but I would have to say that I'm an intermediate to advanced Nightblade user, and so we'll talk about the changes that you can do. Now, because we are running a front bar back bar setup and we are running a mythic item, normally when you're running a basic front bar back bar setup, you can squeeze in a mythic and a 2-piece monster set, but because we're running the master's bow on the back bar, we were not able to do that, and we need both of our sets active on our front bar. So What we have here is Molokina, and it's in medium, and it just gives us more weapon damage. Now, you could change this out to whatever you want. Make sure it's medium, and if you want to pick up, you could go with Dami. Dami would be great. It gives you max stam and max mag. If you want to go with stamina recovery, you could do that. It doesn't need to be weapon damage, so this is a flex spot for you. Other than that, you can see I do have some random traits on here. Particularly on the Crusader stuff, like there's a Divines, there's a Invigorating, there's an Infused. I wouldn't copy those, obviously. If you have an option, you would want to get well fitted for the dodge rolling and avoiding damage. I wouldn't worry about impen on this. Damage is so high in the game right now, everyone's getting blown up, and so our goal on Mandalorian is to be first to the punch. We want to be the person that gets the attack off first, and we can do that from stealth. Now, let's talk about max stam right here. 22,000 max stam. On Mandalorian 2.0, it was 24,000 max stam. Still really low, and a lot of people are not used to running. That's what makes this an advanced Nightblade or intermediate to advanced Nightblade build. However, what I found is, just like with my Storm Atronach that I was really pumping spell damage into, the higher your spell damage and the more pen you had on that particular build, the less resources I needed to expend because people were dying that much quicker. And so when you have higher spell damage and higher pen, you require less recoveries. And so I thought that was interesting. But anyways, this has kind of worked the same way. And so 22,000 right now seems okay. Now, for me, if you were to look, we are using Smoke Bear Haunch. And Smoke Bear Haunch gives us some max health and then health recovery, and then our stamina and magicka by an extra 13, 15. Okay? If you're going to change this and you're going to go with Bewitched Sugar Skulls, your recoveries are going to drop down a lot. Okay, you're going to drop down to 1,000 or under in your stamina recovery. In that moment, I recommend that you change from the warrior to the serpent. Okay, so there are ways to nip and tuck this build to suit your needs. If you need to be in the 2,000 stamina recovery range on a stamina Nightblade ganker, you do you. Okay, there you can do it on the build, just through changing your mundus, changing your food, and then you can change the enchant, go as far as changing the enchants on your weapons or jewelry, sorry. And you can see we're infused with weapon damage on those, so you can switch those out. Another thing that you could do as well is you don't need prismatic enchants on everything. Oh, it looks like I missed that one for some reason. But if you wanted to run just like say stamina on these, you could, and then run health on these, and just run lower max mag. I like where our max magicka is at for one reason, a main reason, and I also like where our magic recovery is at. This build works really well for me. Your two ways to disengage from fights or reset fights require magicka: Shadowy Disguise and Shadow Image. Both of them require magicka, and you can see that's 4,200 expense right there, and this is 41, almost 4,200 expense right there. So you need good magic recovery and a good max mag pool to be active on this, right? Hopping in and out of the shadows from target to target and killing, and not having to slow down. Another nice thing too, or maybe not a nice thing, but something to point out, are heavy attacks with 8,100 weapon damage thump really hard. And a common opener for Nightblades is a heavy attack into a surprise attack and then an execute, and they're probably dead. And you can see any of my other Mandalorian videos, you know, where I'm running around in Battlegrounds and stuff, you can see that sometimes that's just the easy heavy attack, surprise attack, execute, on to the next. So if this scares you, go Bewitched Sugar Skulls and make some adjustments to your enchants, or this, or your mundus, or your food. You have a lot of flexibility. Okay. let's see here. So we talked about the armor sets. Let's talk about our damage modifiers, because some people are probably like, where are you getting all that damage? Obviously, New Moon Acolyte has 387 weapon damage at the bottom, and then the 3-piece has another 124 weapon damage right there, okay? And then when you look at Crusader, it's just a bunch of weapon damage. And then also Minor Courage, which I think is 230, 250 extra weapon damage. So whenever that shield procs, you're going to get that extra 250 weapon damage, which is really nice. And we've got infused on all of our jewelry, so we're pumping out more weapon damage there. We have the Warrior Mundus Stone, so there's more weapon damage there. We have the Caustic Arrow and the light. When we hit someone with a light attack Caustic Arrow, we'll get both the weapon damage enchant and the Caustic Arrow bonus, and so that's just a huge steroid to weapon damage. Okay, now another way that we're getting weapon damage is from Vampire, obviously. And so when you look at Strike from the Shadows, when you leave Sneak, Invisibility, or Mist form, your weapon and spell damage is increased by 300. So that's really nice. And then when you look at the medium armor passive, Agility right here, increase your weapon and spell damage by 2% for each piece of medium armor. And we've got 6, so that's plus 12% to weapon damage. Now the thing about this is percentage based increase. So as all of our weapon damage modifiers start stacking up on this, that Agility passive really does work for you. Okay, it starts steamrolling your weapon damage higher and higher, and so that's pretty impressive. But 9k on this, no problem with continuous. Let's talk about the ability bar. With Crusader, obviously after the change, if you watch I'll link this video, but if you watch my last Mando video, I dropped running ambush, and I just went with surprise attack, executioner, and then I moved relentless to the front bar. Okay, and we were able to put Mark on my back bar, Mark target. Mark was nice, gave me some heals when the targets died. Yeah, a lot of people don't like running Mark because it actually gives your presence away, but most of the time it shouldn't matter anyways. The second you mark him, hit him with the lethal arrow and the light attack and jump on him, everything should be over in a heartbeat for them. So, but with Crusader and its new function, we needed the gap closer on it. And we do get Empower, so our light and heavy attacks hit 40% harder, so it's not a complete loss. We are running surprise attack. We are running executioner. Normally I run reverse slice for the splash damage, but we wanted to have the higher execute threshold, and that works out. I like running shadowy disguise on my front bar because I usually don't let off on somebody until they're dead, and so I can stay on my front bar and continue to dodge around, cloak in and out, avoiding damage, and continue working on them until they die. And so that just seemed to work a lot better, especially with like bar swapping issues and things like that. So I've pretty much always run shadowy disguise on my front bar. We're running rally, which is our major it's our major brutality buff and minor endurance buff, so that's nice. And then it's also our burst heal, and this will keep me off my back bar a lot of the times too. I don't need to go back there and hit a vigor. I can just hit a rally and we go right back to work. And we are running in cap on this, and you get at the bottom, you can see while slotted you gain Reeve, which restores 100 magicka and stamina when you deal damage with light or heavy attacks. So it really helps to obviously do your light and heavy attack weaves, which kind of feeds right into your Empower buff. And then another thing on there too, deal 16,000 damage, cause them to take 20% more damage from your attacks for 6 seconds. And so we hit extremely hard when we're at our 8 or 9k weapon damage, and we hit somebody with this, so it's pretty unbearable. Also, when we buff up, I think, let's just we're just going to do a basic buff. There's 7k, so we actually get almost 2k higher than that. With the tooltip on it, 18k, right? And 11,000, so this will probably get 12 or 13,000. And this hits 21,000, I think, at fully buffed. and so that's pretty nice. We are running poison injection, which is our execute. It applies a lot of pressure to a target. Now we're very burst centric, or damage, our burst damage is off the chains, but if they start evading us or running around a tree or whatever, this thing does work as soon as they hit under 50%, and it starts really ticking on them hard. And we're running relentless focus. I took off our marked target and had to put relentless on here because the tooltip was just absolutely ridiculous on it. Like again, we'll buff up just to our I guess coming out of stealth we'll end up going up to 7,300. Yeah, but let's look at, yeah, so it's 19,000 tooltip generally, and that's 1,000 to 2,000 weapon damage less than what we can achieve. So it breaks 20k on it, and our vigor is 19,000 on our back bar, but it actually breaks 21,000 when we switch to our front bar. That's nice. We are running shadow image. This is how we disengage from fights. Some Nightblades like to run fear. Fear's okay, except for the fact that it doesn't create space between you and the enemy or the craziness that's going on. And so if you get caught in a bunch of AoE or get caught out of position or the train's coming through, this thing will create space for you, whereas fear will just stun them, and then it's on how quick can they break free from the fear and still keep attacking you. And so I just ended up liking shadow image much better. And we are running channeled acceleration. It gives us major expedition for 12 seconds. We'll talk about how I juggle resources on this. This is also the part that establishes the intermediate to advanced Nightblade skill set, but and you can also see that we get minor force for 36 seconds, increasing your movement speed by 30% and your critical damage by 10%. We have a lot of crit damage modifiers on a Nightblade, and this is just another one of those, but the magic expense on it isn't too bad. And so now let's look at our tooltip on. See, we got 78,000 tooltip on our Toxic Barrage. We're still leveling it. Another 40,000 over 8 seconds. And so, you know, the cost on this is 183 versus 77. So this is primarily your go-to. Plus, it gives you that plus 20% damage to a target. However, if I run into a werewolf instead of trying to stand and box with a werewolf, or if I run into a situation where I need to poke them from far, right? Jumping in is probably not a good idea. I need to get someone out. So they're two very heavy AoE centric type builds. Then all I'll do is make sure this is up, hit my primary target with poison injection, and then I'll just hit him with a Toxic Barrage. I'll get the first target out, then I'll cloak, do the same rotation or poison injection, light attack on the secondary target, and then we're going to go to work on them, jump in and get them out. And so this is situational. You can put other things here if you want. Now there might be some Nightblades that say, hey, you're not running shuffle, or you're not running a way to clear you know, any immobilizations or anything like that. Well, they've recently changed Shadowy Disguise. Dan from Unified Gaming has a perfect video showing you how almost completely broken Shadow Disguise is and negating damage and preventing you from being slowed. You can run through Caltrops at full speed as long as you're stealthed. And so that's another reason why having high max mag and mag recovery is very important right now. So check that video, Dan from Unified Gaming, and wish him a happy wedding. He just got married, so congratulations, Dan. Okay, so that's the abilities. Obviously, you want to get all your class passives. You want to get your weapon passives from your two-hander and your bow. And we're only running... Look, I'm missing these. I could probably even pick these up. You know what? Let's do that right now, because that's going to increase our stats. Oh, I missed that. Who knows? Anyways, medium armor. Let's look at what our max stats are now here. Our health should have went up a little bit. Yes, it did. Okay. Nifty. Okay. Okay, get all your medium armor passives, get all your heavy armor passives, even though you only have 1%. What do we gain out of that? A little extra healing. Heavy attacks restore a little bit more, 2% more max health, a little bit more health recovery, but we are stage 2 vampire on this. And we get some resources when we take damage, some resistances. Vampire-wise, Strike from the Shadows is very important. Dark Stalker is very important. And because I am not a stage 3 or higher, Undeath passive doesn't matter. An unnatural movement doesn't matter. Now, on a Stamina Nightblade, if you want to run around and sprint around and do the whole vanish thing, then you would want to be a stage 4 to do that. However, I think stage 4 has too high of a cost increases to your regular abilities, especially when paired with New Moon. Okay? And then you don't need the Undeath passive on a Stamina Nightblade unless you are constantly out of position. Our job is to be like the scalpel. You know, jump in, cut the target down, and jump out. Okay? Psijic Order, I have a lot of these, so I get a little damage shield on my bow bar when I hold block. That helps mitigate some damage. And you can run with Race Against Time also. It's just the duration is shorter on Race Against Time. I like Channeled Acceleration because the Minor Force lasts 36 seconds, and so that's good. I don't use this a whole lot for the Major Expedition, only when my stamina is low, and so I'll hop in and out of stealth and use this for my major movement speed and let my stamina catch back up, which we'll cover here shortly. And my race is a high elf. Okay, so Mando actually started out as a Magicka Nightblade, and I switched him over to Stamina, and I really liked it. So Spell Charge, when you activate an ability, you restore 625 magic or stamina based on whichever is lowest. This happens every 6 seconds. This actually helps immensely with your sustain. Okay, and increase your max magicka by 2,000. That's great. And increase your weapon and spell damage by 258. It's built into the class, so there's another weapon damage steroid for you because we're a high elf. You can also get a similar effect through orcs. Orcs now have weapon and spell damage on one of theirs, and an orc will, whenever you do direct damage, you'll get a heal from it. So orc would be another option for this build. Okay, so that's all of that. As far as flex goes, if you don't like the gap closer, then you need to get rid of Crusader. Or if you don't like Crusader, you can get rid of the gap closer or whatever, and move this to your front bar and then drop mark target on there. Okay, but this is how I play. Feels great for me. Let's jump into the CP, and I think we're done. One last thing here, how I open on a target. Okay, let's see if I can. There's our 8100. You saw that for a brief second, but anyways, there's a little bit of prep when you're jumping in on a target, and that little bit of prep is making sure channeled acceleration is up, making sure that your rally is up, and then you know, making sure that you have your relentless focus ready to go, and you're just going to do a light attack into a caustic arrow. Okay, so that's how I open on it. You can see that in the videos as well. That's how I finish people super quick. Alright, let's jump into the CP. CP tree has changed just yesterday. Okay, this is super new build. Okay, for me, the green tree is kind of a personal preference. You can run whatever you want to run here. Okay, so for the time being, reduce the cost of sneak by 1% per stage. So I have a 50% cost reduction to sneak. That's awesome. Okay, I also have increase your out of combat movement speed by 20%. That's awesome. Suits the Nightblade very well. Adds 10 minutes to your duration of your food. That's awesome considering the food that we use is gold and very expensive, okay? And then increase the quality of the items you find in treasure chests. And so as I'm just cruising around the world, when I find a treasure chest, I have a high chance of finding something nice in there. That works out really well. Everything else is kind of personal preference. This one's pretty nice. Breakfall, reduce the fall damage taken by 35%, and reduces the radius you can be detected while sneaking by 3 meters. This is nice. As a vampire stage 2, you won't need this. Reduce the movement speed penalty of sneak, okay? As vampires don't need this because they have a passive that removes the movement speed penalty entirely, okay? So if you're a vampire, don't worry about getting that. Blue tree. First thing I almost always do on all of my builds is I picked Untamed Aggression. This is an extra 150 weapon or spell damage. Next thing I do is I work my way up to here and I get Wrathful Strikes, which is 165 weapon and spell damage. Okay, I make sure, especially on Mando, that I have 20 points into Precision for the extra 320 crit chance. I tested these two against each other, and this ends up only being 10%, and this ends up being 15%. Increase your critical damage done by 15% against enemies you are flanking. Flanking is basically from one ear around the back of their head to the other ear. So even if you hit them from the side, you're considered flanking them. Okay, so you get that plus 15% critical damage done. We also, using Shadowy Disguise, get a 100% crit chance coming from stealth, and we get some class passives that boost our crit damage, and we should be getting the crit damage modifier from Channeled Acceleration, another 10%. So that's great. Deadly Aim. Increase your damage done with single target attacks by 10%. You can do this, or you can do direct damage, because the thing about it is the only dot damage that we have, which is going to be our poison injection, is an execute. Our poison injection, for the most part, isn't what's killing people. We just burst them down before they know what's going on, okay? So you could run with either or, but I just went with single target abilities because everything we do is single target, okay? These ended up working out great. Now, if you wanted to drop the extra 15% critical damage from the flank of an enemy, let's say you're a Brawler Nightblade, drop that and pick this up. I have 3 points here because I have everything I could possibly want on this, and I have nowhere else to put points at, and so I was just throwing them in there for the hell of it. Let's jump into Extended Might, show you a couple important things. Piercing, you get an extra 700 offensive penetration, and then right here 60% increased chance to apply a martial status effect. That's great, whatever our enchant, as long as our enchant on our weapon is like poison or disease. Disease will be the highest burst damage, poison will put a dot on them, so keep that in mind. Now if you're running frost or lightning or fire, this helps you there. Both sides of these offer an extra 100 weapon damage, okay? Now, before the patch dropped, as soon as I dropped 30 points into both of these, when I dropped 30 into this, my weapon damage went up by 100, and then when I dropped 30 into this, my weapon damage went up by 100 again. And so I don't know if it was supposed to be working that way or what, so I just left it. But this is the one that's important for you, because affects physical, poison, disease, bleed, damage, which we do all of that. Now, if your enchants are different, do that. But that weapon damage was coming in even though, and I showed a buddy of mine, Sinful Duck, and he said, I don't think it's supposed to be working that way, but it did. Okay, let's jump out of there. We're going to jump into this. Make sure you get max stamina per stage. That's an extra 520 max stam. We need it on the build, and a max mag. And I might have to look at these and see if these two offer more max stam and magicka than these. Maybe we can boost our stats just a little bit more. Now I came into this tree right here, quick recovery. There's an extra 2% healing, and there's an extra 2% damage reduction from magic attacks, 10% magic reduction to non-player attacks. So when I'm in Imperial City and say a banner is in the middle of the fight, or I'm ganking people that are fighting a district boss, I don't want the district boss to nuke me while I'm killing people, so this helps a lot if you're doing that. Probably helps against guards as well out in Cyrodiil. So, and we've got an extra 2% for Hardy, and then the last thing is, let's jump into this. I've got 20 points here, and that gives me another 2% healing done, and nothing else there. Okay, that's the entire blue tree. Blue tree got a little tricky, but that's how we like to run it. Okay, red tree, you can set this up a couple different ways. Right now I've got rejuvenation, which is an extra 90 health, magic, and stamina recovery, and I could bump my max health up a little bit if I wanted to by doing boundless vitality, but we ended up going with survival instincts. While afflicted with a status effect, your core combat costs 5% less per stage, so 25%. So my dodge roll, my break free, and abilities like that, and I think we'll look at that when we jump out of here, but those abilities costs are reduced by 25% when I have a negative effect on me. That's great. And we are running siphoning spells, restores 300 magicka per whenever you kill an enemy, 300 stamina whenever. This helps with our recoveries while we're in fights, and then everything else is you can put whatever you want. Okay, let's talk about the changes that they made. So they added some really cool things here in this. You guys can check those out, but I do have 50 points into Mystic Tenacity, 25% reduction duration, reduce the duration of elemental status effects on you. So let's say my magic is really low and I can't hop back into stealth to negate the damage outright, because when you go into stealth now it says missed when dots are on you. The dots are just missing you while you're stealth or concealed. Okay, but if I want that dot to get off of me fairly quickly, or I'm in the middle of fighting, this will drop it off quicker. And they changed this here, increase your movement speed when sprinting by 4%, and then they added some other cool fields, and then they added this right here, increase your movement speed while bracing by 6%. I don't do any block casting on this, but we're at this point on the red field where I'm just dropping points into things, you know, and pretty much the only things I can drop them in. Okay, we're at that point. 15, almost 1600 CP, and don't have anything else to spend on. Okay, so that is the CP, and then the final thing for you guys is talking about juggling in and out. If you are an advanced Nightblade, you already know what I'm talking about here, but if you hit crouch, see how we're hidden, and while we're moving around, we're going to burn stamina. Very slowly, but we're burning stamina. It's going down, okay? If for whatever reason our stamina gets low, so let's dodge roll around a little bit. And our stamina is getting a little low, and I'm coming up to a fight, and I decide, you know what, I need to get some stamina back. I'll come out of stealth, and then I'll just start cloaking. Okay? And I'll let my stamina start building back up. And now we're at full stamina with the potion pop, and we're ready to go. Okay, so you just jump between being hidden and cloaking as you're moving. Okay, that's all I have. We covered the build, we covered the tooltips, you saw the weapon damage. It's ridiculous. We're in the highest damage meta the game's ever been in, and so this build's going to take full advantage of that. And then we talked about the flex spots and all the different ways that you get additional weapon damage on this build. And then if you want to modify the build, you can go back and look at that. Like, you don't like where the stamina recovery's at, you need 2000 stamina recovery. There's plenty of ways to get your 2000 stamina recovery. You don't like 22,000 max stam. I don't necessarily like 22,000 max stam, but I was used to running 24,000 max stam, so 22 isn't that far of a stretch for me. But you would just switch out our food and you would go with Bewitched Sugar Skulls. Okay, I wonder if I have any on me, just so you can get a peek. I don't have any on me, but anyways, here it is. Mandalorian 3.0 works really, really well. It's freaking scary. Thanks, bye.